Om Bhadram Karne Vishnuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhir Yajatraha Sthirairangai Stushtuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitai Yadayuhu Swasti Nahindro Vriddhashravaha Swasti Nav Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti Nastarksho Harishtanemihi Swasti No Brahaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good. Welcome back. We'll continue. We're seeing in this Amrita Bindu Upanishad, we're seeing a lot of verses which are restating some of the topics we've seen in the other Upanishads, but restating it in a very simple, accessible, and very poetic way. We're going to see some of that poetry in today's class. We finished verse 12 in our prior class. Verse 12 was the first of 3 verses which are all based on the same drishtanta, the same metaphor. And the metaphor is our famous Vedanta prop. And a clay pot, of course, in ancient times, the pot was essential, for it was the only kind of vessel one could have. And even in India, up until recent times, if you went to get a cup of tea, you'd get this, matka you call? Cooler. Mm-hmm. So, in the previous verse, we saw a metaphor, a drishtanta we had seen before. In all 3 of these verses, pot represents your body, made of clay, physical body, made of clay. This one made of clay, so to speak, made of elements. In verse 12, we saw the metaphor, ekada bahudha chaiva drishyate jala chandravat. One moon reflecting in the water in many pots. The light of one moon appears as many, bahudha. In spite of it being ekada, in spite of the moon being one, we have many reflections in many pots. We've seen this metaphor in many contexts, very famous metaphor. Many pots full of water reflecting one sunlight or one moon. In the same way, many physical bodies full of sukshma sharira, in particular mind, antakarana. So many bodies possessed with minds, filled with minds. Like the pot is filled with water, our bodies are filled with life, in particular mind. And because of the presence of mind, all of these individual bodies reflect the one consciousness, just like one sun or one moon is variously reflected. In the same way, one consciousness is variously reflected. Notice that the reflection in each one of our minds is completely different. What you're experiencing and what I'm experiencing are completely different. Those experiences are reflected consciousness. Consciousness is the same. Reflections are different. And we saw in that metaphor, you can have the water in each pot has slightly different characteristics, different ripples, different degrees of purity. According to the nature of the water in the pot, that determines the nature of the reflection. In the same way, depending on the nature of our minds, antakarana, determines the nature of reflected consciousness. And remember, in this metaphor, reflected consciousness means what you're experiencing right now. That's reflected consciousness. Okay, so we saw that was the first of our 3 metaphors based on a pot. Now we come to the second. Ghata samvritam akasham, Ghata samvritam akasham, Niyamhano ghate yatha, Niyamhano ghate. Ghato niyeta nakasham, Ghato niyeta na, Tatha jivo nabhopamaha, Tatha jivo nabhopamaha. Good. Ghata samvritam, akasham. There is ghate in this pot. There is akasham, space. You can see. You can't see. Space can't be seen, but we understand. In this pot is space, and therefore, Ghata samvrita akasham. There is akasha, space, which is samvrita, encompassed or surrounded by ghata, pot. In English, we would simply call it pot space. Ghata akasha is pot space. If this is ghata akasha, what is all of this? We call it mahakasha. Akasha. So ghata akasha, mahakasha. Little space, big space. Now, we're going to see in this is a common metaphor, but that's a common expression, I should say. But the actual metaphor conveyed in this verse, I've not seen before. It might exist elsewhere, but I've not seen it before. Look what he says. So yatha, just as, akasham ghate, just as when there's space in the pot, and that space is ghata samvrita akasham, pot space. Space surrounded by pot. But when that pot space, niyamanaha, when it is moved, literally when it is led, but it means when it is moved. When you take that pot and move it, what happens? So when I take this pot and move it from here to here, have I moved the space inside the pot? That's interesting. So right now, there's ghata akasha. There's no ghata akasha here. But when I move the pot from here to here, now there's ghata akasha here, and there's no ghata akasha there. So therefore, we can ask, has the pot space, ghata akasha, moved from here to there? Absolutely not. What has in the process of moving this pot, what happened to space? Nothing. But let's see what the verse says. So niyamanaha, when that pot is moved, ghataha niyeta, the pot would have been moved, na akasham, but not the space therein. It's the pot that's moved and not the space therein. Now, this is not a philosophy class. We could care less about what happens to pot space. So this is all a metaphor, a very powerful drishtanta to explain something about consciousness. Oddly enough, the tatad, in the same way, jivaha, and here, oddly, jiva ends up meaning consciousness. It's not a conventional usage of the word jiva, but when you understand the verse, it can only have that meaning of jiva. So it says, tata, in the same way, jiva, consciousness, is nabha upamaha. Nabha means space, upama, similar. So in the darshtanta, yatha introduces the drishtanta, the metaphor. Tata, the word tata, introduces the darshtanta, that for which the metaphor is made. So in the drishtanta, space is in the pot. In the darshtanta, jiva, consciousness, is nabha upama, takes the role of space. So space is in the pot, consciousness is in this pot. We said pot represents body. So just as pots, there's gata akasha here, gata samvrita akasham. Here, there's deha samvrita chaitanyam. Chaitanyam, consciousness, which is deha samvrita, in surrounded by deha, surrounded by flesh, or less kindly, surrounded by fat. All right. So now let's put the drishtanta and the darshtanta together. When you move the pot, there's pot space, gata akasha, but when you move the pot, you are not moving pot space. The pot moves, space remains utterly unaffected. In the same way, there's deha samvrita chaitanyam, consciousness, inside this body. When this body moves, does consciousness move along with it? There's a drishtanta. I've not seen this elsewhere. It's nicely said in this verse. It's very pleasant to see that. When the body moves, the consciousness within the body does not move with the body, because these are two utterly different realities. Space is one reality, pot is another reality. They're fundamentally not related. In fact, now we can really make it clear by observing that even to say gata akasha or gata samvrita akasha, space in the pot, is a figurative usage of this language. Which is more accurate? There's space in the pot, or the pot is in space. The latter is far more accurate. Space is in the pot is a very narrow perspective. When you stand back and get the bigger vision of what's going on very clearly, pot is in space is a much more accurate expression of the reality. In the same way, watch the language now. Does consciousness pervade your body? Yeah, just like space is in the pot, consciousness pervades your body. But which is more true? Consciousness pervades your body, or your body exists in space? Consciousness is reflected in your mind versus your mind exists in consciousness. Wow. That's a radically different perspective, and this is the accurate view. This is the vision of reality we're after. This perspective helps us get rid of the notion of my consciousness and your consciousness. Imagine if there were two pots and two pot spaces. One pot is talking about my pot, my space. The other pot is talking about no, my space. So pot A has pot A space. Pot B has pot B space. Wait a minute. No pot has any space. There is only one space. There is no my consciousness and your consciousness. There's only consciousness, Chaitanya Atma. One Chaitanya Atma. Many manifestations, many reflections, many bodies and minds. We'll use some scientific language. Many bodies and minds walking through the field of consciousness. So, in physics, we use terms like electromagnetic fields. By the way, do you know right now you're sitting in electromagnetic fields? There are radio waves and microwaves penetrating your body right now as we sit here. We are living in a world full of electromagnetic waves. Fine. We then live and walk and move through these electromagnetic fields. As a scientific fact, this is a metaphor. In the same way, our bodies and minds move through the so-called field of consciousness. One boundaryless field of consciousness through which our bodies and minds move, just like the pot moving through space. Very nice metaphor. All right. That's the second. So the first one was pot full of water. Second one is pot full of space. And the third one was just pot. We'll see that next. Ghatavat vividhakaram Ghatavat vividhakaram Bhidyamanam punaf punaha Bhidyamanam punaf Tadbhagnam na cha janati Tadbhagnam na cha jana Sajanati cha nityashaha Sajanati cha nityashaha. Gata vividhakaram Bhidyamanam punaf punaha. Gata vividha akaram. Vividha akaram, many different forms of a gata, of a pot. Bhidyamanam punaf punaha, and being destroyed. A pot is taking many forms, and that pot is being destroyed. Punah punaha, again and again and again. A good way to envision what the metaphor is here is, have you ever watched a potter at a wheel? It was fascinating. Have you ever done that? When I was young, I had a chance to do that sometimes. It was fun. So imagine a potter with a pot, and they start with a lump of clay. The lump of clay is there, and then you push your thumbs inside, and you pull up with your fingers, and magically, fatafat, as you'd say, there's a pot. So imagine a potter. He spins his wheel, and he pulls up a pot, and then suppose he doesn't like the shape of the pot. What does he do? Crunches it back down. Then what can he do? He puts his thumbs in the clump and he pulls up another pot. He doesn't like that one either. Crunches it down. He can pull up pot after pot, each time a different form, vividha akaram. Each pot he pulls up has a different form, bhidyamanam punaha, and then he crushes them all down again and again. Remember, the pot represents our body. So each time the potter pulls up the pot has a different form. Each time we are born and reborn, we come in different forms. Regardless of the form we take, bhidyamanam, punaha, we are destroyed again and again, meaning our lives come to an end again and again. Here's part of the Drishtanta, talking about the cycle of birth and rebirth for a physical body. Turns out that's not the point the verse is going to make. The point the verse is going to make is in the second line. Tad bhagnam nacha janati. Tat bhagnam, the destruction of that body. Na janati, he doesn't know. Who doesn't know? The pot doesn't know its destruction. The pot doesn't know it's coming and going. One pot after another comes and goes, comes and goes. Does the pot know it's coming and going? On the other hand, sajanati chanityashaha, saha, he knows. Who is he? In the Drishtanta, he is the potter. The potter knows. Pot after pot comes and goes, but the pot doesn't know it exists and then dies, just like our bodies and minds, excluding consciousness. If you subtract, this is theoretical, I should say, if you subtract consciousness from your mind, I have to say theoretical because there's no such thing as mind without consciousness. But theoretically, philosophically, if you could subtract consciousness from your mind, what would remain would be jada, inert. So there's stula bhutani, physical elements, and mind minus consciousness would be sukshma bhuta, subtle elements, but equally jada, equally inert. Inert physical matter, inert mental matter, or subtle matter in the theoretical absence of consciousness. So the body-mind, which is after all what's getting... Actually, your body doesn't really get reincarnated. Your mind gets reincarnated, mind along with sukshma sharira. But in our metaphor, a pot comes and goes. Metaphorically, a body and mind complex comes and goes. But the body-mind complex itself doesn't know it's coming and going. Sajanati, sahajanati, but someone knows. Who is the one who knows the presence of your body? Well, there's a conscious individual. And that conscious individual is the consciousness. Chaitanya Atma. So the body comes and goes, consciousness doesn't come and go. Nityashaha. Because that consciousness is unchanging. Nitya, eternal. Because that consciousness is eternal, unchanging, ever-present, in the unchanging presence of consciousness, bodies and minds come and go. In the presence of the potter, pots come and go. In the presence of consciousness, bodies and minds come and go. Very nice expressions in this. Very, very accessible, very nice. Sajanati cha nityashaha. Very simple also. We can go through these verses more quickly. So, these three verses together, and next verse goes off in a little different direction. So these three metaphors of the pot, these gata drishtantas, these metaphors employing a pot, are all meant then to help us understand, through metaphor, understand the nature of consciousness. And that's what Vedanta is all about. When you truly understand the nature of your, in quotation marks, when you truly understand the nature of your consciousness, you will truly understand everything. Everything means everything. If you ask, well, Swamiji, can I actually know Brahman? Prajnanam Brahma is one of the four main Mahavakyas. Consciousness is Brahman. When you know your consciousness for what it truly is, when you know your consciousness as not being your consciousness or my consciousness, but you know that consciousness as truly being Satchidananda Atma, then you can discover that Satchidananda Atma is non-different from Brahman. Through knowing consciousness, you know everything. So these three metaphors to help us understand more clearly the nature of consciousness. Leading to the next verse. Shabda maya vrito naiva, Shabda maya vrito naiva, Tamasayati pushkare, Tamasayati pushkare, Bhinne tamasi chaikatvam, Bhinne tamasi chaikatvam, Eka hevanu pashyati, Eka hevanu pashyati. Shabda maya avritaha na yati pushkare tamasa eva. Little poetic. Na eva yati pushkare. Na yati. One will not reach Pushkare. Pushkara is one of the many words for lotus. Pushkare, one will not reach the lotus. We're talking about flowers here? Lotus is a poetic expression for, in this case, for consciousness. We saw before the word jiva used rather irregularly for consciousness. Now here we have lotus. If you wonder how can lotus mean consciousness, the lotus, Padma, often refers to heart. And heart we speak of as the seat of consciousness. So the so-called lotus heart is the seat of consciousness. Therefore, Pushkara, lotus represents here consciousness, Chaitanya. So, Nayati Pushkare. You cannot reach, one cannot reach to that Pushkara, to consciousness. Why? Tamasa. Due to ignorance. Due to tamas. Tamas here means ignorance. Due to ignorance. What kind of ignorance are we talking about? And we get some detail here. Shabda maya avrita. That which we seek is avrita. It is covered by maya. Maya has many meanings. So here maya is something which is covering. What kind of maya is covering what we seek? A maya in the form of shabda. Maya, shabda maya. Maya in the form of words. What is that referring to? Maya in the form of words. A nice paraphrase for that would be concept. Maya in the form of words means concepts. Shabda maya avrita, that which is covered up with concepts. What are we talking about? The Pushkara, consciousness. Consciousness which is covered up with concepts. Now we can make some sense out of this verse. Consciousness covered up with concepts. First of all, consciousness is you, the essence of who we are. So when I say, I am Swami Tadatmananda, Swami Tadatmananda is a concept covering consciousness. When you say you are a human being, when you say you're a man or a woman, when you say you're young or old, these are all concepts that cover consciousness. Even if you say, I am happy, I am sad, I am tired, I am excited, any of these expressions are concepts which cover consciousness. All of these experiences are present in your mind, illumined by consciousness. Being illumined by consciousness, they are separate from consciousness. Further, consciousness is utterly unaffected by all of those experiences, the nature of your body, nature of your mind. Whatever is going on, consciousness is utterly independent of it. But what happens, the technical Sanskrit term is anyonya adhyasa. We haven't used that term here before, so let me put it up on the board and explain it properly. Adhyasa means superimposition. Anyonya, mutual. Of course, that's not very helpful. Anyonya adhyasa doesn't mean anything. Mutual superimposition is also pretty much unrecognizable terminology, so we have to work on these words to understand what is anyonya adhyasa, mutual superimposition. Mutual, what are the two things we're talking about? I and not I. consciousness as opposed to body-mind complex, body-mind-sense complex. Anyonya adhyasa means the characteristics of one are superimposed on the other, and the characteristics of the other are superimposed on the first one. Now, in the case of human experience, when I say, I am Swami Tadatmananda, I'm superimposing Swami Tadatmananda-ness on Atma. Swami Tadatmananda-ness belongs, strictly speaking, to this body-mind-sense complex. This one that you're looking at happens to be associated with Swami, or let me put it the other way around. Swami Tadatmananda refers to the one you're looking at, sitting here. The body, mind, sense complex that you see and hear right now is where Swami Tadatmananda-ness resides. But when I say, I am Swami Tadatmananda, what I'm doing is superimposing characteristics that belong to the body, I'm superimposing on consciousness. To use another technical term, this is an upadhi. So the qualities or characteristics of the upadhi are superimposed on consciousness. So this is the nature of the body. If I say I am male, body is superimposed on consciousness. If I say I'm 50-something, qualities of the body superimposed on Atma. Whatever qualities of the body I can superimpose on Satchidananda Atma, not just physical characteristics like tiredness, etc., but also all the mental qualities. I am happy. I am sad. Happiness and sadness belong to the mind, do they not? I'm relaxed. I am agitated. Relaxation and agitation belong to the mind. But when we use that kind of language, I am happy, I am sad, I am agitated, we are superimposing qualities of the mind upon consciousness. That's 1/2 of the anyonya adhyasa, is superimposing qualities of the upadhi upon the truth of who you are, Satchidananda Atma. Anyonya means there has to be the other side too. And the other side is, when I say the other aspect or the other direction of superimposition is when I say, you see this? This is me. Me. Or you look in the mirror and say, that's me. Wait a minute. Think about that. You look in the mirror and you say, that's me. The essence of who you are is consciousness. Is that what you see in the mirror? It's not what you see in the mirror. So when you look in a mirror and say, that is me, you are superimposing your essence. Atma tva, if we want to make up a word. Atma tva, Atma-ness. You are superimposing selfness. Is that a word? None of this is words. Running out of language here. Selfhood. There we go. Finally, forget a valid English word. So when you look in the mirror and you say, that is me, you are superimposing selfhood on your physical body, because that's all you see in the mirror. You don't even see a conscious being in the mirror. Mirrors only reflect image of physical things. That mirror isn't reflecting your intelligence or your emotions. All that mirror reflects is an image of your physical body. So when you look in a mirror and say, that's me, your selfhood is superimposed on your physical body. Your Atma-ness, your essence, is superimposed on your physical body. This is the flip side. So just as you superimpose the qualities of your body on Satchidananda Atma, in the same way you superimpose your selfhood as Satchidananda Atma, you superimpose it on your body, which is why some people fear death. If this is me, when I die, I cease to exist, right? Some people will have that fear. When I die, wait a minute. In that very expression, when I die, in that expression, there is the superimposition of I-ness on this physical body. That's the flip side. So the qualities of the body and mind are superimposed on Atma. The nature of Atma is superimposed on the body and mind. This is anyonya, adhyasa, mutual superimposition. Why does that take place? That is, in fact, that's what's described here as Shabda Maya Avrita. That which is surrounded by Shabda Maya, surrounded by concepts, covered up by instead of surrounded by covered, Avrita, covered up by concepts. The true nature of Satchidananda Atma is covered up by concepts of the body. And we could even say that the nature of the body can be covered up by concepts of Atma. There's a mutuality of that superimposition. So, because of this Shabda Maya, Avritaha, because of this covering of concepts, Shabda Maya, na eva yati pushkare. One cannot reach na yati pushkare, up to the lotus, up to the truth of yourself as consciousness. Why? Tamasa. Due to tamas, due to ignorance. Specifically, if you knew your true nature as consciousness, this anyonya adhyasa comes to an end. This kind of superimposition can only take place in the presence of ignorance. In the absence of ignorance, there's no superimposition possible. Go with our favorite example of the Raju Sarpa, the rope snake. You can only superimpose the snake when you are ignorant of the rope. If you see the rope, you can never superimpose a snake. Superimposition is the result of ignorance. Adhyasa is the result of avidya. This is technical stuff in Vedanta. Due to avidya, ignorance, self-non-recognition, as my guru likes to say, due to self-non-recognition, avidya, comes adhyasa, superimposition. 2 steps. And as long as we're talking about these 2 steps, which step causes all the suffering? Is self-non-recognition, does self-non-recognition make you suffer? Or does superimposition suffer? I want to make this point very clear. We said a moment ago that avidya, ignorance, leads to adhyasa, superimposition. Ignorance of the rope leads to superimposition of the snake. Ignorance of your true nature as Satchidananda Atma leads to superimposition of the qualities of your body, mind, etc. Leads to both ways, anyonya, adhyasa. So that being so, which makes you suffer? Does non-recognition of your true nature as Satchidananda make you suffer? Or does anyonya adhyasa make you suffer? Go back to the rope snake. Does non-recognition of the rope frighten you? If you don't see a rope, any problem? No problem. There's only a problem if you see the snake. Then there's a problem. So from that example, it's very clear that it's the adhyasa that makes us suffer. In fact, we could think of that then as being the next level. Avidya leads to adhyasa, superimposition, and adhyasa, superimposition, then leads to suffering. But then, how to get rid of the problem? So we want to get rid of the problem of suffering. How do we do that? Well, go back to the rope snake. If you see the snake laying there in front of you, is the right solution to get rid of the snake? Should you pull out a stick and start beating on the snake? It's not a snake. So to pull out a stick and start beating on the snake is not the right approach. The right approach is to gain knowledge that is just a rope. In the same way, the solution to Vedanta is not to struggle with the details of the Sanyonya Adhyasa. It's helpful to know in general what's going on. But the ultimate solution is found by destroying the avidya, ignorance of one's true nature, which is obviously destroyed then by self-knowledge. So, finishing up our verse now. So the first line talks about the nature of the problem. Na eva yati pushkare, one will never discover your true nature as Satchidananda Atma. Why? It is Shabda Maya Avrita. It's covered up by all these concepts, tamasa, due to ignorance. Then, what should we do? Bhinne tamasi, when you destroy, bhinna, when you destroy the tamas, the ignorance. When the ignorance is destroyed, and how do we remove ignorance? With knowledge. When the ignorance is removed, this is a nice expression. Cha ekatvam eka eva anupashyati. When ignorance is removed, ignorance with regard to your true nature, do you suddenly discover something you've never seen before? This is a common misconception in Vedanta, not around here, because you've been listening to these teachings for too long. But you know that many people with a superficial understanding of Vedanta, they believe quite strongly that with Atma Vidya, they will discover, the language goes usually like this, bubbling up from your mind, rising from the depths of your unconscious will come Satchidananda Atma, shining like 1,000 suns. They all use different expressions, but they more or less mean the same thing. What they say then is you will have some kind of experience in which you see, you discover, you experience Satchidananda Atma, you experience yourself that you've never experienced before. You have a novel experience of yourself. And we've discussed this before, you understand very well, it's absolutely incorrect. And the confusion can be so clearly seen just by noting when you see the 1,000 suns. Who's watching this 1,000 suns? The one who's watching the 1,000 suns is Atma. The 1,000 suns cannot be Atma. No experience, no object of knowledge can be Atma. So this is a common misunderstanding. Look how this verse expresses it so nicely. This verse really destroys that concept, that Shabda Maya, that concept that Atma should reveal itself like 1,000 suns is destroyed by the second line. Look how the second line takes it. Bhinne tamasi. When ignorance is removed, ekam, ekatvam, ekatvam, ekaha eva anupashyati. Ekaha eva, the one alone, anupashyati, discovers what? Ekatvam. The one discovers oneness, is literally what the verse says. The one discovers oneness, and what it means in our context is you discover your true nature. You discover who you already are, who you always have been. The one discovers oneness. It's like water discovering it's wet. Is that a novel discovery? Water discovers it's wet. Fire discovers it's hot. Imagine water being so diluted as to think it's hot, and fire being so diluted as to think it's wet. That could cause, if they were living beings, they could get very confused and suffer as a result of that confusion. So water discovers, hey, I am wetness. Fire discovers, hey, I am hot. You discover, hey, I am Satchidananda Atma. When water discovers it's wet, it's not a novel discovery, it's the discovery of an already existent fact. When you discover your nature as Satchidananda Atma, it's not a unique, novel experience of something. It is the recognition of an already existent fact. Of course, the fact is a wonderful fact. To discover your boundarylessness, your limitlessness, your vastness is a wonderful discovery. But it's an already existent fact. It's not something novel. Ekam, what is this? Ekaha eva anupashyati ekatvam. The one discovers oneness. You discover who you've always been. Very nice. All right. These are simple verses, so we'll just continue. Now we're back to our topic of meditation on Om. Shabdaksharam param brahma, Shabdaksharam param brahma, Tasmin kshine yadaksharam, Tasmin kshine yadaksharam, Tadvidvan aksharam dhyayet, Tadvidvan aksharam dhyayet, Yadi chet chantamatmanaha, Yadi chet chantamatmanaha. And there's an A missing here. Dhyayet, yat it chet. There's an A missing there. Yad I chet. Yad I chet. Yadi it chet. All right. Shabda aksharam param brahma. We have to go down to the second line to make any sense of the first line. Dhyayet. One should meditate. Dhyayet. One should meditate. How should you meditate? Shabda aksharam param brahma. You should meditate on Shabda Aksharam, on an Aksharam, on a syllable, which is a Shabda, which is a word. You should meditate on a word syllable. How should you meditate on that word syllable? As Param Brahma, as the supreme reality, as the ultimate truth. Gee, I wonder what Aksharam do you think we're talking about here? Om, of course. So, Shabda Aksharam Param Brahma. Om is to be meditated upon as Param Brahma. How do you meditate upon Om as Param Brahma? We saw that in two prior texts, in Kaivalya Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishad. We saw that very elaborate Omkara Upasana, where represents waking state, U, dream, Makara, sleep, and then silence. Or we can also get another meaning, which is not present in Mandukya, but could be present in that Kaivalya passage, where can represent Brahmaji, the creator of the cosmos. U can, we talked about this during Kaivalya. Can represent creation, Brahmaji as creator. U can represent sustenance, Vishnu as sustainer. Makara can represent dissolution, Maheshwara as the destroyer. Ma can represent Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, creator, sustainer, destroyer, representing then Saguna, Brahman. Ishvara. Ishvara is Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. So it's another way of understanding this. So Shabdaksharam Param Brahma. Making use of Om, Shabdaksharam, meditate for the sake of reaching Param Brahma, which means Ahuma leads you to the silence, and that silence symbolically represents Nirguna Brahman, Param Brahma. So we've talked about that both during Kaivalya Upanishad and during Mandukya Upanishad. Shabdaksharam Param Brahma Tasman Kshine Yadaksharam. There's actually a Sanskrit pun being used in this verse. You know, a pun is a word that's used in two different ways or two different meanings. So the word aksharam is used, there's a pun on the word aksharam. Two different meanings of the word aksharam. Nakshayati yasya iti aksharam. That which undergoes no division or dissolution is that which is aksharam. Ksharam, that which decays. Aksharam, that which can't decay. So aksharam, that which can't be divided, is used for syllable, right? And aksharam, ah, e, e, ka, ga, nga. These are all aksharas. They're all syllables. Why are they syllables? You can't divide it. If you have the syllable ka, you can't separate out the kakara part. So in order to pronounce it, you need the whole syllable, which is ka. So for that reason, ka is called akshara, an indivisible unit of sound, of language, aksharam. But aksharam is used in a more philosophical term, a more philosophical sense, to talk about an ultimate reality which is unchanging. Aksharam Brahma. I think in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita that expression is used. So Aksharam Brahma, the indivisible, unchanging reality called Brahman. So is Aksharam talking about a syllable, or is it talking about Brahman? The answer is yes, correct. And this is the basis for the pun. So first it says, Shabdaksharam Param Brahma, meditate on the syllable Om as Brahman. Tasman Kshine, and then when the syllable Om fades away, Tasman, when it Kshine, when it fades away, Yat Aksharam, then you meditate on Aksharam, but not the earlier Aksharam. So first it says, Shabdaksharam Param Brahma, meditate on Aksharam, meaning Om, as Brahman. Then, when Om fades away, meditate on Aksharam. Wait a minute. I was meditating on Aksharam before. Aksharam was Om. But when Om fades away, meditate on Aksharam. That's the other Aksharam. Meditate on Brahman. You see the pun? First usage of Aksharam means syllable. Second usage of Aksharam is Brahman. So meditate, I'll paraphrase that first line. Meditate on Brahman using the syllable Om. When the syllable Om goes away, then just meditate on Brahman. First meditate on Brahman using Om, then meditate on Brahman without using Om. Om is called an alambana, a support for the sake of meditation, an object of meditation. But Om is not the goal of meditation. Om is a device, a technique that gets you to the goal of meditation. The goal of this meditation is Brahman. I should mention that for sannyasis, Om is the mantra. There's another mantra that's also given, but Om is the mantra for all sannyasis. So this is why. You meditate on Brahman using Om, then when Om goes away, Om going away means when it's no longer needed, when it's no longer necessary. Then you just straight away, directly, you meditate on Aksharam Brahma. Tad Vidwan Aksharam Dhyayet. Tat, upon that, Vidvan, a wise person, aksharam dhyayet, should meditate on akshara. A wise person should meditate on akshara. Which one? The syllable or on Brahman? It's a pun, both. So, Vidwan, the wise person, dhyayet, should meditate on aksharam, on the syllable om as an alambana, as a support, until tasmin kshine, until that om goes away, until om is no longer needed, then you should meditate directly on aksharam brahma. A wise person should do so, yadi, if itchet, if he or she desires, shantim atmanaha, if he or she desires the shanti of Atma, the shanti which is the swarupa of Atma, the true nature of Atma being shanti. So, yadi itchet, if you desire Atma shanti, if you desire to discover that peace which is your true nature, then what should you do? Tad vidvan, such a person, such a wise person, aksharam dhyayet, should meditate on aksharam. First, the syllable om, and then on Brahman, without the syllable om. This verse shows the progression, really, from meditating on saguna Brahman to meditating on nirguna Brahman. First, you meditate using om, perhaps in that second sense, ma, representing creator, sustainer, destroyer, and then you transcend that. You give up that saguna Brahman to reach nirguna Brahman. The next verse is really connected to this, and it's very short, so we'll just see that one more verse and conclude our class. Dve vidye veditavyetu, dve vidye veditavyetu, shabda brahma param chayata, shabda brahma param chayata, shabda brahmani nishnataha, shabda brahmani nishnata, param brahmari gacchati, param brahmari gacchati. Dve vidye, two dve, two, vidye, two kinds of knowledge, veditavye, are to be understood. The same expression is found in Mundaka Upanishad. Dve vidye, veditavye, two kinds of knowledge are to be known. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's aparavidya and paravidya. There's a lower knowledge and a higher knowledge. In this context, the two kinds of knowledge are of saguna Brahman and nirguna Brahman. These are the dve vidye, two kinds of knowledge, veditavye, to be understood. Saguna Brahman, making use of om, ma, representing creator, sustainer, destroyer, leading to aksharam brahma, giving up om and just appreciating the absolute nature of param brahma. Dve vidye, veditavye, these two kinds of knowledge. Actually, there's another meaning. In Upanishads and in Vedas, the word vidya often means meditation, upasana. It's a Vedic usage, an Upanishadic usage of vidya. Vidya means knowledge conventionally. But in certain Upanishadic contexts, vidya can also mean meditation. So with that in mind, dve vidye, there are two kinds of meditation. Veditavye, which are to be practiced. Two kinds of meditation are to be practiced. What are those two kinds of practice? One is Shabda Brahma, Brahman in the form of a Shabda. What Shabda? Om. So Brahma, Shabda Brahma means Om. Ma is Shabda Brahma, Brahman in the form of the sound Om. Param Chayata, and also Param, Parabrahma. So dve vidye, veditavye, two kinds of meditation are to be practiced. Meditation on Shabda Brahma, which is meditation on Om, and secondly, meditation on Param, on Parabrahma, the Absolute. Both of these are to be practiced. Which one should we practice first? Duh. Well, the author of our text wants to make it very clear that you start at the beginning and end at the end. So he says, Shabda Brahmani Nishnataha, for one who is Nishnata, skilled, very skillful in Shabda Brahmani, in the use of meditation on Om, when you become very skillful using Om as an alambana, as a support for meditation, then what? Param Brahma adhigacchati. Adhigacchati, one gains, one reaches Param Brahma. So very clear, which comes first? Shabda Brahmani Nishnataha. First you gain skill and preparation through meditation on Om. Then, with that, due to that practice, having made progress on a spiritual path with that practice of meditating on Om, Shabda Brahma, then and then only, Param Brahma adhigacchati, then one can reach Parabrahma. So Om leading to meditation on Saguna Brahman, leading to the discovery of Nirguna Brahman. Om leading to the discovery of Parabrahma. Very good. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, just 5 verses left. We might finish in the next class, or it might go to 2 classes, I'm not sure. Definitely we have at least 1 class, possibly 2, to finish our text. Very good. And we'll conclude tonight with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.